Hello, my name is Mark McSweeney, and I'm the Executive Director of the Association Societies Alliance. ASA, also commonly referred to as the Allied Society, is the association that supports the important work of the societies of association executives across the country. Collectively, our allied societies represent more than 4,000 trade, professional, and individual membership associations from coast to coast, including Hawaii and even New Zealand and Australia. On behalf of all of us at ASA, I want to thank you for taking time to join us for this incredibly important webinar, Adding Member Value in Time of COVID-19. We are recording this webinar and will make the recording available to each of you, as well as to those who are unable to join us for the live presentation. Those of you attending the live webinar will also be eligible to receive 1.5 CAE hours of continuing education. It is now my privilege to introduce to you our facilitator, Lowell Applebaum, CAE. Lowell is a certified professional facilitator and the CEO of Vistacova, a company that partners with associations on vision, strategy, and strategy planning and governance excellence. Lowell, with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks so much, Mark. Welcome, everyone. It's a pleasure to have you and over 900 of your friends, closest, nearest, and dearest with us today. For sure, this is a unique moment in time when there's a lot of heartache and struggle and stress and strife potentially. And it's important in these moments to also have an eye and have a focus on the good, on the importance of our organizations. You know, forever we always say that our professional organizations, our associations are the heart of our industries. We are the voice that represents a profession. We are the reason that our industries have a central place to gather, to have their members come together. And certainly at a moment such as this, this is when we want to be able to hear how those industries have been able to pivot, have succeeded in creating unique member value that is helping those that have affiliated as well as their professions or industries as a whole. And that's what you're going to hear today. You're going to hear from hopefully 16 different associations representing 16 of the different state societies, just how they are pivoting to share their success story with you of how they are pivoting to create the value that their members need. I want to give recognition and thanks to all the state societies of association executives for making this possible. This will be recorded and this will be shared afterwards so that you are able to then view the examples afterwards. There's no slides. Everything that will be shared will be live websites that show the value they're creating, and I will share those websites actually in the chat box so you can follow along so that as we hear each one present, you can click along on your screen, and we will have available afterwards a full listing either in the coming days of all those sites. Without further ado, let's jump in. We have a lot of examples to go through and a lot of great stories to hear. So with that, I'd like to first turn and invite Jacob Wilder to join us. Jacob Wilder, CAE, is the Senior Director of Operations and Communications with BOMA, Georgia. Jacob, are you there? And I would invite each panelist, if they have video capability, just as we see Jacob's beautiful face right there, to join us on screen when it is their time to present. So you can see who's talking to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Lowell. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to present today. Lowell, you can start with link number 2 first, sure, and then you can bounce back and forth as we move through. My name, as Lowell says, Jacob Wilder. I work for the Building Owners and Managers Association of Georgia. BOMA, Georgia is a trade association representing commercial real estate in the state of Georgia. We are affiliated with BOMA International, and we are the largest local in the BOMA Federation. Our members are the property managers, facility managers, operations, and maintenance personnel.
Video.
That's the screen.
Excuse me,
That's what he's showing right now.
Wait.
That's what he's showing right now, yeah.
I'm sorry. Whoever else is talking,
yeah,
we need to mute you, please. Thank you. Sorry, Jacob.
No worries. So our members are the property management professionals that service commercial office, government buildings, medical office, corporate facilities, industrial properties, and shopping centers. And our mission is leading the commercial real estate community to enhance the professionalism and value of our members through education, advocacy, community involvement, membership participation, and the open exchange of ideas. And our major deliverables of that are our education and advocacy piece that we do for our members. You can visit our calendar at any time in the year. You'll be shocked at the amount of programs we produce with just a staff of 3 and soon to be 5. As a local association, we very much desire to have a presence nationally and globally. The 2 sites that I provided in today's example are examples of that. They are CRE Leader and then O&M Insights. They're produced by BOMA, Georgia, but the brands are distinct. We utilize these platforms to communicate with real estate professionals across the globe. These 2 brands would be key in our COVID-19 response. When COVID-19 forced our association to pivot approximately 4 weeks ago now, we needed to immediately address our upcoming programs. We had to postpone, reschedule, or reformat approximately 30 educational programs and meetings that were taking place between March and May, and obviously we all know that's ongoing. Included in these programs were 2 of our most popular programs and one of our biggest revenue generators, our bowling social and then our trade show. At the same time we were addressing our programs, we were also adjusting to remote work. We started the process of delivering education and content to our members. We like to say that just because we couldn't meet and the nature of our work had changed, it didn't mean that association's mission had stopped. Our first major project was a webinar about COVID-19. Commercial office buildings can be one of the places where diseases can spread quickly. My organization had been partnering with another organization, the Association for Professionals in Infection Control and Epidemiology, starting late last year, actually, working on the flu. And we had reached out to the Greater Atlanta chapter, and they provided us with a subject matter expert. This partnership, I think, is exemplary of the power of A. A few days later, we were offering the webinar for free across the country. By the day of the webinar, we had reached our 1,000 participant limit for Zoom. Our largest online program to date prior had only had 30 participants. This webinar was recorded and published to our CRE Leader video website, and in the days shortly before and after the webinar, BOMA Georgia had produced 11 videos and 8 articles related to the COVID-19 response. One of those articles links to a one-pager produced by our foundation that provides real estate professionals with a concise collection of resources that these professionals need at this time. In the days ahead, we plan to continue releasing more blog and video content. Right now, I'm currently working on 3 new projects that will produce between 8 and 10 new videos for the CRE Leader site that you're viewing now. As a result of these initiatives, page views on the CRE Leader website were up 589%, and on the O&M website, they were up 461%. Again, the 2 sites that Lowell has displayed for you today are linked from BOMA Georgia's homepage, so immediately how we're serving our members' needs and creating awareness. But additionally, many chapters around the country have linked to these sites or directly to specific blog posts and videos. We estimate that probably between 40 and 50 local BOMAs are sharing our content right now. Feedback by members and non-members has been overwhelmingly positive. Because members of other BOMA locals are not considered our members, we would include them in our non-member count. And many have been so grateful for the work and leadership role that we've been playing as we help to bring this content to them in their time of need. So I'll close out by saying thank you for allowing BOMA Georgia to participate in today's call. And thank you to this great community who is rallying in response to the COVID-19 outbreak.
Excellent. Jacob, thank you so much for sharing. Those are some amazing results and great resources that you're helping your community and corporate real estate community around the country. Again, you'll see everyone that I'm sharing in the chat box, the links that I'm sharing. If you have questions for each speaker, you can put them in the question box. They'll take a look after they present. Because of how many presentations we have, we're not going to be asking questions directly here. We'll direct them all there and then capture and share them after. It's my pleasure to next present. Here we go. To next introduce Christine Hilmer, MBA CAE. Christine is the president and CEO of the Wisconsin Restaurant Association. Christine, we'd love to hear some of your story.
Good morning, everybody. The Wisconsin Restaurant Association's mission is dedicated to the success of food service in the hospitality industry. There's very few industries that have been hit as hard as the restaurant industry and hospitality, and I include some of my other hospitality industry colleagues, hotels and innkeepers and so on. When this hit, it was the last day of our expo. So my team has been going full bore since, with no days off since early February. We went into our expo, and on the last day is when all of a sudden we got a safer at home order from our governor, which meant that all restaurants were closed to in-restaurant dining. And so what we did is we very quickly, as a senior leadership team, focused in 5 key areas. Anything that we did that was not part of these 5 key areas were no longer going to be something that we were going to be focused on. The 5 core areas were communications, which has been a huge part. We have been communicating out to our members at least once a day, even on weekends, sometimes multiple times of the day, because things are moving so quickly and changing so fast. We also have an inbounds. We have a call center that members can call in. It's Ask WRA, and we have a number of staff that are devoted to answering those calls. We've had that hotline for many years, and it's anything from HR to legal to any questions they have on how to run their restaurant. The third is an outbound call strategy that we wanted to reach out to all of our members. We have 1,500 members with 7,000 locations. We're reaching out to those 1,500 members right now, asking how they're doing, what we can do to help, how they're facing these challenges. We have a legislative, regulatory, that's the 4th bucket, and then the 5th one is core. We still have to make sure that our mail gets picked up and our deposits are made and so on. All of that has allowed us to do the 4 key things on our website, which Lowell is showing you right now. We have taken all of our resources and put them into 4 main areas. The first is employer resources, and these are for the owners and operators of restaurants, helping them navigate what the emergency orders say, what they can, what they cannot do, how they can keep them and their staff safe, while also filling the food need, because in Wisconsin, kids are home from school. So families are faced with having to feed them for 21 times during the week, not just for dinner. And so Wisconsin restaurants are really helping fill that food need, in addition to the economic need of making sure that these businesses are solvent at the end of this. So that is the employer resources. On the employee resources, we also understand that anytime you have a change in operation, it affects not only the restaurant itself, but all the people that they employ. And it's really important to make sure that they have resources. On that page, we have things such as how to apply for unemployment, how do you apply for SNAP benefits, anything they need to navigate this new normal. A lot of them have never done this before. And then in addition to that, we knew that we have a very large population of employees that are temporarily out of a job, but we also have other sectors of the economy who have openings. And so we're working to be a connector, and on that employee page, we have over 50 companies around the state of Wisconsin that are looking for temporary employees. And we've had conversations with every single one of them that once this crisis is over, we need our hospitality folks back, but we also know that they have bills to pay. And so these are temporary jobs that they can fill, and they can take a look, and it's all over the state. The third is our restaurant listing, and that's takeout and delivery. Because in dining is not possible, a lot of businesses have pivoted very quickly to being able to do takeout or delivery, and that has changed. It's a huge change for a lot of folks. But also we're getting calls, well, who's open, because they want to support their local community restaurants. So there's over 1,000 restaurants on there, and it is divvied up by county so that you can see what is open and so on. And then the last one is actually a fun one that we just started about a week ago. It's what's good in your neighborhood. Folks are thinking outside the box. The entrepreneurial spirit of restaurants are coming out, and we're hearing a lot of really cool things that are happening, and we want to celebrate that and celebrate in a way that promotes the restaurants but promotes the industry. And so these are feel-good stories that are on our website on what they're doing in their community to help either their employees or help those that live in their neighborhood.
Excellent. Love the organization of it all. So much of what I've seen is just more and more, and this helps people find exactly what they're looking for. Thanks so much, Christine.
Great, thank you.
If anyone has questions for Christine, you can put them in the question box. All right. right, from Wisconsin. Flip over. There we go. From Wisconsin, we're gonna go to Colorado, invite Tim Jackson to join us. Tim Jackson is the president and CEO of the Colorado Automobile Dealers Association. Tim's a speaker, cyclist, pilot, and fast-paced association leader. I'm not sure how much you're cycling or piloting at this moment, Tim, but we can't wait to hear your story.
You bet. Well, thanks, Mark, Lowell, everybody, for being on and organizing this. It's a great idea, and appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. The timing on COVID-19, not that there's ever a good timing for something like this, but it was terrible timing for us. It was 3 weeks ahead of our biggest projects of the year, which include our Denver Auto Show, the annual Denver Auto Show, which is a consumer show, the largest consumer show in Denver or in Colorado, and one of the oldest auto shows in the country after Chicago and New York cities. So the scare on COVID-19 was coming down. And about the time the mayor and the governor were putting out do not meet bans, so we had to postpone those events. We have tentative dates for late August. Just from a pure economic standpoint, we did an economic impact analysis 2 years ago on the Denver Auto Show, and for the community, it's a $62 million impact annually. So we definitely want to get that rescheduled if we can. We'll put it out far enough that we think we may be able to run it in late August, but I guess it's anybody's best guess as to how this will play out in the ascending months. So related to the auto show, we do a green car parade that's at the Colorado Capitol ahead of on the Sunday before the show opens. We do a Colorado car convoy and take it out all over the state to 14 different communities. We host an Innovative Dealer Summit, which is an educational event for our member dealers that's in conjunction with the auto show. And we host a preview gala, which is a public event giving a snapshot of the show. And this year, for the first time, we were planned to launch a Colorado Automotive Hall of Fame, where we were recognizing 52 automotive leaders down through the years in Colorado. That was to become an annual event. All of those have been postponed. Let's go on to, and I see you have the page up on our COVID-19 resources. We launched as a result of COVID-19, shifting, by the way, from the association now to the members, what we're here for to begin with. We are the member dealers interface with the governor's office on the executive orders and the stay-at-home campaign. And as was cited by the Wisconsin Restaurant Association before me, we weren't used to home deliveries of cars, but that's what we have now. So consumers cannot go and negotiate in a showroom, but they can go online and purchase a car, and the dealer can take it, literally deliver it to the home. So I think there's some commonalities here among industries that have developed very interesting that may have opportunities for us in the future. We also, because of all the changed protocols, we had to work with the governor's office to get protocols for auto service. That's repairs still can be done in dealerships, just the sales can't be. So we've had a number of different protocol distributions. We've launched a daily e-newsletter to update our members so they are abreast of the latest changes. And then we've also launched several of this type of video conference we were going to use this platform. I think we ended up using Zoom. We have about 300 members, but on some of these calls, video conference calls, we've had as many as 450 people dialing in to get additional information as to what the latest protocol is and what they should do, can do, everything they need to do to keep their employees safe, to keep their customers safe, and to keep the public safe. And I think that's what everybody is all about. We all want to be in the safest place possible for the COVID-19. I want to just close out, and I'm going to leave this as an opportunity for anybody that's interested in this or maybe have ideas. And it was interesting that I'm following the Colorado Restaurant Association because I'm working with the Wisconsin Restaurant Association. I'm reaching out to the Colorado Restaurant Association, the Hotel and Lodging, the motor carriers, which are the trucking industry, the oil industry, the Farm Bureau, and other associations in Colorado, because we know there's obviously a lot of layoffs. It's reported there's already been more layoffs due to COVID-19 nationally than there was in the entire recession of 08-09. I'm old enough to have lived through that, so I know how it takes a while to come out of that. And so I'm working on a campaign, and I say I'm working on this. This is very preliminary stages. So what I'm going to tell you about is really just back of the envelope stuff. But first, to get Colorado back. And so I think we could work with the Restaurant Association, Hotel and Lodging, and some of those other associations that are adversely affected, and we all are, I believe, adversely affected by COVID-19, in ways to help speed the economy back when we come out of this morass that we're in under COVID-19. And then I'm even thinking farther forward, maybe 4 to 6 months, maybe up to a year, that we would move the Get Colorado Back campaign into a Moving Colorado Forward campaign, working, taking the lessons learned in the initial weeks and months, weeks and months coming out of the this crisis, and as has been mentioned by the Wisconsin Restaurant Association, I think our members are becoming very entrepreneurial, very creative. We want to find a way to compound on those creative juices, those creative ideas in ways that maybe we've never seen before, never contemplated before, to help move the economy forward. And I think that'll be important to all associations, because associations do advance America. Thanks so much for the opportunity to be on, and I'll stay on for the duration and be able to take any questions that anybody has.
Thank you so much, Tim. It's great to hear the efforts that your organization's making, and love the idea of collaboration during this time when we need to be stronger together. If you have questions for Tim, of course, feel free to put them in the questions box. And we'd like to move back to the East Coast, back to South Carolina. So if I could invite Ashley to join us. Ashley, are you there?
I'm here. Can you see me? Good afternoon.
There you go. Ashley Batson is the Executive Director of the South Carolina Asphalt Pavement Association. Ashley, what great story do you have to share with us?
Yes, well, thank you for the invitation to be here, and I'm really thrilled to be on with so many folks to listen and learn and share this information today during this uncertain time. We are the South Carolina Asphalt Pavement Association. We represent the asphalt paving producers across South Carolina, and like you all, about 4 weeks ago, when we started seeing a lot of these executive orders coming into place, we quickly looked at our core functions and our strategic plan and wanted to see how we could best serve our members. And that was, of course, to focus on communications to our members and also advocacy. So our website is there, and if you scroll down a little bit lower, you'll see that we just quickly dedicated the front page of our website to update the industry and provide information both from our national association, our other state asphalt paving associations as things were progressing across the country, and then of course here in South Carolina. And we began immediately communicating with the governor's office as well as our state Department of Transportation to ensure that our industry, the asphalt paving industry, would be considered an essential business service and be continued to operate, even in view of a shelter in place or shelter at home executive order, which we do not have currently. We have some localities that have put that in place, but we are one of those states that is holding out on the blanket order at this time. I will tell you, the first several weeks, that was a challenge. Our Department of Transportation was unsure about if the governor were to put such a mandate in place, would we be able to continue operating? And so we then had to work along with the Carolinas Association of General Contractors and the American Council of Engineering companies. We worked together with them, with our state DOT, to develop that first document you see linked there, which is a joint workforce safety plan. And this was, of course, an opportunity to put some protocols in place to ensure that if we are going to continue working to pave the roads during this time and take advantage of traffic off of the roads, we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to, prevent the spread of COVID-19 and to keep our workforce safety, healthy. And so this document is is a work in progress. It may evolve and it may change. And even today, we are continuing to work with our state DOT to update any specifications that might need to be tweaked or changed as a result of, some of these policies we put in place. And again, our goal just moving forward is just to keep our industry working throughout this time, as well as to pivot and focus on our workforce development efforts. Unfortunately, we have there are a lot of industries that have had to lay off workers, and as an industry that is continuing to work, we would like to see some gains there where we could maybe help folks find some employment opportunities during this uncertain time. But thank you again for the opportunity, and again, I look forward to hearing what everyone else has to share.
Thank you so much, Ashley. I like how it's front and center, and so you know where to click to first. There's been some great examples of how to both provide the right value and right answers, as well as how to categorize it. This is great. And that was the safety plan that would have clicked through if I had Vanna whited properly. So I will share that link again in a moment so everyone can see that as well. So next, I'd like to invite to our digital stage, if you will, Dr. Robert Spangler, who is a business technologist and is the Associate Executive Director of the New Jersey State Bar Association in New Brunswick, New Jersey.
Hey, thank you so much for being so accommodating and scheduling this for all of us. I mean, I think this is a wonderful opportunity for us to share. I'm going to get right into it. So the New Jersey State Bar Association has 18,000 members. And as such, they're attorneys, judges, legislators, everybody that you would imagine in a state bar association. Every year, we educate about 36,000 attorneys and judges throughout the state. So our sphere of influence is about double the size of the association membership in general. We typically also hold about 350 to 400 live events annually. So that's our bread and butter in terms of our economic side, but also it's a way that we educate the attorneys of New Jersey and the legislature of New Jersey on what's going on and how to help our citizens. Some of those programs that we hold are what you see on the screen in front of you. The COVID shutdown window, essentially, assuming it goes through May, really hit us hard. There are about 80 programs that we've had to convert over to live events. One of the biggest programs that we have every year is our annual meeting and conference. That's been converted over to a live event as well. So it's been a big challenge for us. However, we're well positioned to do this because we had in place for several years a system to allow live webcasting from our headquarters in New Brunswick, New Jersey to anywhere in the world. So we've been very lucky in that regard. In late February, we started kind of planning because we saw what was going on and we thought, well, this could affect us. And unfortunately, reality hit like everybody else has said. And I won't really belabor that, but what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about 4 practical strategies that we took a step back, and maybe they'll help all of you, but 4 practical things that I think might, that worked well for us that might shed some light on this for everybody. The first thing we did is we sat down and we identified the key issues our members and our industry were facing and developed a plan to respond accordingly. So we kind of said to ourselves, okay, how do we help attorneys and judges to keep doing what they're doing? Because that's important work, right? It's not just for us, but really for the country to allow attorneys to do what they need to do, judges to hear critical cases, really, really important stuff. And how do we educate them regarding safety to do these things online? Because now you have these highly sensitive issues that people are talking about, but they have to do them from a home office or somewhere they're not accustomed to doing. So data privacy issues, things like that. We also had to take a step back and say, well, okay, because this is all developing, what new issues have really arisen? And how do we accommodate that? And crucially, how do we remain responsive? So we're still listening, right? So we can't just say, these are the issues that we're facing, that you're facing, and just put all this stuff out there, but we have to be responsive. So our 4 steps were essentially this. First, advocacy. So just like Ashley said that the Asphalt Association did in the Carolinas, we did very similarly here in New Jersey. We fought on behalf of our members to remain open during the lockdown, of course, socially distancing, all the appropriate measures that needed to be taken, but we needed to be out there to help for people that are just in very, very bad situations, that need legal representation, that need help and have nobody else to turn to. And we successfully did that, and a number of other things. And when we did that, we decided that we needed to do the second thing. So first, advocacy, second, communications. We needed to tell not just our members, but our industry exactly what we were doing, to tell them, hey, we fought on behalf of you. We made sure that this could happen, and we're working with the governor on a regular basis to make sure that you can do what you need to do to help our citizens to get through this thing. From there, we realized that all those new things that we talked about required, again, education. I mentioned how there are 80 some odd programs that we have, and you can see our schedule here in front of you, where we had to reschedule events, we had to put different things on our calendar. Well, we took a step back and we actually scheduled dozens of free programs that weren't just for our members. They're free for any attorney, any legislator, any judge in the state of New Jersey to attend. We've so far done 13 free programs since this started in mid-May, and we've educated thousands of attorneys. As a matter of fact, right before joining this call, we had an event with 600 people as well online talking about, unfortunately, it's very morbid, but doing remote estates and trusts. So, I mean, things like that, just really important issues. That's how we maintain staying on top of this. And then last, to wrap it all up, listening. We've held Zoom calls with our leadership. Whether it's, we don't have chapters, we've got something called sections. So we got those people together, we talked to them, we saw them just like we're doing today. We got them up all on a screen and we went through round robin style to be able to identify the issues that they were facing. And we're going to keep doing it, because if we don't listen to them, we won't know how to remain relevant. So those 4 things, again, I just loop back on those. If, from my side of this anyway, advocacy, communications, education, and listening. And the last little thing that I'm going to throw out there, it's really important to have fun. We got everybody together for a staff meeting. We had a great time with it. We said, what's the best Zoom background that you can put up? What's the best hat that you can wear, a funny hat? We had somebody with the Tiger King background. I mean, you name it, we had it. Ellen from the Oscars. But the truth is, getting everybody together and reminding them, this is where we're going together. These 4 things aren't things that just our leadership is talking about. We're all invested in this. That was essential. So those are my things. If you have any questions for me, you can hit me up later. I'll be on the chat here, but I really appreciate you having me on for this.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Robert. And it's great to see the various offerings here. There's such a great variety, from the technical criminal law practice to the tongue-in-cheek, you don't have to go to the grocery store to hoard these virtual practice tips, to those that don't have to do with law, right? Tips on video conference preparedness and etiquette. Offering this to the broader community and seeing, therefore, a broader awareness, not just with your members. Great example.
Thank you.
We'd now like to invite to join us Lynn Faulkner, who is the Executive Director of the Kentucky Association of Master Contractors. There we go. I think I got the right page up. Lynn? Lynn, we saw you. There we go.
How are you today?
Good,
I appreciate you guys having me on. My name is Lynn Faulkner. I'm the Executive Director of the Kentucky Association of Master Contractors. I'm also the President of the National Women in Construction Association, and I'm also the President-elect of our local Kentucky Association of Societies, KSAE. We are in the midst, as everybody else is dealing with the COVID-19. Our struggles have been rescheduling lots and lots and lots of continuing education for our members who require that education to renew their plumbing and HVAC licenses, as well as boilers, cross connection, backflow, you name it. They have to have a license for it, and they have to have education. So we've struggled pretty hard with this. We've worked with some of the other associations here locally, home builders, AGC, different associations that we work with, to try to extend the licensing renewal fees and the requirements for their education. So we worked really hard with that. We also just kind of did a montage of a page just to have a go-to place for all of our members to get information. If they need to know, they want to read the information on renewing their licenses and how it was extended. If they need OSHA best standards, all the way down to the paycheck protection, to any of the small business loans. So we just kind of started collecting data and putting it there. We did a lot of emails out to our membership. Here's the information we have. We had a lot of sharing. We were worried that once we were deemed essential personnel, did you need a letter from your employer to make sure your employees could get to the job site or get to work? We also struggled with trying to make sure that everybody was following the OSHA standards. And, plumbing and HVAC contractors come into your homes. And so that started another issue on, well, how do you go safely into someone's home? You know, how much protective gear do you need to wear, you know, to not only protect you from them, but vice versa. So there was a lot of streaming information and a lot of gathering of information. So I think the one big step that we did at the association was we just tried to keep everybody talking and sharing information. You know, different contractors were sharing, you know, best practices in their areas because we cover the state. So that's kind of how we've pivoted, if you will.
Yeah.
We've been able to work pretty well with the powers that be, the governor's office, the licensing, the Department of Housing, and just different associations trying to pull together best practices and share as much information as we can.
Perfect. Well, thank you for your leadership in your association and across the association space. And it's a good example of how to, I like that we are all in this together. That seems to be a theme of many of the organizations we're talking to, of the frame of how we're all feeling at this moment. So thank you.
Thank you.
And now I'd like to invite to join us from Ohio. Let me click over. There we go. Todd Bowen. Todd Bowen is the Managing Director of External Affairs and Government Relations with the Ohio Restaurant Association. Todd?
Thank you, Lowell, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today. It's interesting in Ohio, we were one of the first states to be impacted by the governor putting in, first limiting dine-in at restaurants and then fairly quickly pivoting to a stay-at-home order. It's really started for us. We were in Washington, D.C. doing our normal advocacy, visiting with our members of Congress, and all of a sudden we started getting alerts that the governor and the mayor of Columbus were thinking about canceling the Arnold Classic, which is a big fitness expo in Columbus. And this was really prior to anyone believing that coronavirus was going to have this significant of an impact on the United States, and certainly in the middle of the United States. But the governor and the mayor of Columbus said, you know, that with so many people coming in from so many parts of the world and across the country, canceled that classic that really had the restaurant industry in that area reeling, because it was, you know, probably a $60 million expo that was happening. And then from there, very quickly, once you make that first decision on canceling something, it just keeps happening that the next step is going to happen, the next step's going to happen. So very quickly, Ohio went to a full stay-at-home order. One of the first things that we did was we fought very vociferously to make sure that carry-out, drive-through, delivery were included as essential businesses, and making sure that they were as broadly defined as possible. And then from that moment, every day we think about what can we do to help both the restaurant industry survive this crisis, and then what can we do to help individual restaurants survive this crisis. So everything that we do comes through that lens. So from an advocacy perspective, we have been in touch with every one of our members of Congress in Ohio. We communicate daily with the governor and lieutenant governor and their staffs. We are part of the governor's economic strike force, you know, focusing on what things can the state do to potentially be helpful to businesses as they are trying to get through this. We work closely with other associations, of course, because many of the impacts will be felt by everyone, but there are some that restaurants feel more than others. Food safety would be an example of that. And so and then the other thing that we do is we make sure that the advocacy we are doing and anything the government is doing, we are the primary communicators of that to the restaurant industry. We do that through our website. We, you know, very quickly pivoted to having a coronavirus updates page where we just put things in immediately as they happen. And then as you're showing now, Lowell, on the screen, a coronavirus resources page where we begin to bucket things in logical ways so that they would be very available to our restaurateurs. We also instituted putting out a daily memo where we make sure that any information coming from the government or from other restaurateurs who are doing unique and creative things, that we get that out to the community as a whole. We, of course, pivoted to making sure that we're not just worried about taking care of our members, but we're making sure that anybody everybody in our industry that we are reaching out to them and making these resources available. And then, of course, as many others have mentioned, it's the personal touch, being that ear, being an empathetic listener, and literally spending whatever time it takes on the phone with each individual member of our industry to talk about what they're going through. It's been amazing to me to see how every one of our restaurateurs, their hearts first go out to their employees, second to their communities, and then they ask that question, what can you do to help me survive this crisis? We know it's going to be a long road back. We are already starting to talk to our elected officials about coming out on the other side of this and making sure that they are putting forward a path that makes sense to every business involved. We certainly understand that we're not going to be on a stay-at-home order one day and then all at the Cincinnati Reds or the Cleveland Browns game the next, and that path toward becoming a fully open community once again is followed through with logic, and that businesses are listened to as we go through that. So Lowell, certainly appreciate the opportunity to be on today and to talk a little bit about what restaurants in Ohio and really across the country are going through.
Well, it's been great to hear both what you're presenting and then have that balanced with what we heard from Wisconsin. And I love the dual page approach of like the quick updates of what's coming on, as well as then the categorization in the resource center. That's really great, Todd.
Awesome. Thanks, Lowell.
Thank you. There we go. I would now like to invite to join us Stephanie Parton, CAE. She's the Vice President of Communications for the Indiana CPA Society. Stephanie?
Thanks, Lowell. I'm with the Indiana CPA Society. We have 7,500 members, and we're a state association. And our members are considered essential employees right now. Today, I want to go over two quick points that I think could be helpful to associations. The first is what you see on the screen here. It's an example of our 3 at 3 email. So like many of you, we have a great resource page on our website, but that depends on our members going out to our website. And so we wanted to be sure to push some information to our members through email. So we tried a couple of things early on, mid-March. We sent an email from our CEO. It was a pretty lengthy email, had a link to the resource page, and then a list of classes that had been canceled or rescheduled. And then a few days later, we did a more traditional, longer e-newsletter with lots of links, different sections. Both of those emails did well with open rates, but the click-through rates were below our average. So Wednesday, March 18th, we pivoted. One of our communications staff people came up with this idea for 3 at 3. And like the name suggests, we send out this email at 3 o'clock, and it includes the 3 things that our members need to know. It did really well right from the beginning. So the first day that we sent it, it had a 7.6% click-through rate. And our average click-through rate for our e-newsletter is 7%. The next day, it had a 9.4% open rate. By Friday, it had an 11.1. And our highest click-through rate to date was set on March 25th, which is the example you see on your screen, that had a 14.7% click-through rate, so more than double than what our average is. So we consider this email a huge success. At first, we thought we would just use it when we needed to, but very quickly saw that our members need this information daily, so we have been sending it daily. And we think we'll probably continue to send this email. They really seem to like it. Excuse me. So we have stopped sending our bi-weekly e-newsletter. We're just very sensitive of our members' time and of staff time, and they obviously like this piece. With email, it's great because you can look at stats and see what works and what doesn't. And we've tried stuff that didn't work very well. Last Friday, we tried like a brain break and some softer news, and we looked at the clicks, and they're not there yet. They're too busy worrying about, the loans and auth regulation. Like in this email example, we had a link to a 1-question survey where they could tell us what they needed from us. That went really well. At the beginning, we included a link to free webinars. The first week did great, but then it started to taper off, so we stopped including it. Starting today, we're going to have a sponsor for this e-newsletter, so great non-dues revenue opportunity there. And then we're going to start doing some dynamic content. If you haven't renewed, which our membership renewal is right now, so we're going to do a dynamic content ad to remind people to renew because they see value in this publication. It's a great time to remind them. We have seen outstanding web stats as a result of this piece. Our web traffic has nearly doubled. Our most popular page is our resource page for coronavirus, and we've seen a 7-fold increase in webinar registrations. Member feedback has been outstanding. Lots of emails to our CEO and to our general information email. And the words that they're using the most are that they appreciate us as a trusted resource. So that's the greatest compliment that we could get.
That's great.
And then quickly, the next URL is an example of our communications to our younger members. Our research shows that our young members don't open our emails, so we have to reach them a different way. And we do that traditionally through Instagram. So if you go to our Instagram page, you'll see a card stack with these 3 red stories. And then the URL on Instagram takes them to this page on our website, which is our Young Members Hub. So if they want to, they can click through those stories and read the article, but our whole goal was to get them back to our website. And right underneath those boxes is a link to our resource page for the virus. And then under that, you'll see we have links to different events and education opportunities for our young members. So just want to close out. I have to give a shout out to my team. There's 4 of us on communications. They've been working nonstop since mid-March. We also have a staff of 20 who we all love our members so much and are happy to be here for them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. These are great examples. And just a reminder that any questions of any of our speakers, because I know they're sharing so many different perspectives, you can feel free to put those in the questions box and they are going there afterwards to look at them. We're now going to move from Indiana up to New York as we are joined by George Swain, Masters of Education, CAE, who's the Director for Evaluation and Professional Learning at the New York State Association of Independent Schools. George?
Thank you so much, Lowell. I'm very grateful to be here. Just to tell you a little bit about our association, we are a 200-member association of private, largely independent nonprofit schools across New York State. And those 200-member schools represent about 80,000 students and thousands of teachers and professionals. So as you can imagine, we've had quite an upheaval in our state as people have expressed across the country, with all kinds of essential services, and schools are right at the center of that. What we've done as an association is to focus on primarily our members' needs and to use our mission and our strategic plan as a guide to our decision making. As an association, we focus primarily on professional learning and accreditation and advocacy. These are the 3 legs of the stool of our mission. And on March 16th, all the schools in New York State, public and private, were forced to close. Some of our schools, member schools, closed earlier due to either confirmed cases or suspected cases in their community, or in the event that schools wanted to do some deep cleaning and preparing the space for the return. None of us really expected at that time how long this would last, and now our schools are really prepared to be closed perhaps for the rest of the school year. So they're adjusting in that way. At the same time, our professional learning, one of the major aspects of our work, was disrupted tremendously. We had 13 3-day residential conferences scheduled to take place in the months of April and May, and 17 one-day workshops. So in that area, professional learning, we had to pivot really quickly, both to take care of the events that had been scheduled, but also to deliver really essential professional learning needs to our schools that essentially needed to go from being a brick and mortar school to being an online school in 48 hours. And so what we did was we repackaged a lot of our existing professional learning, the conferences and workshops, and reached out to facilitators in a way to see which of those sessions would be possible to repackage as a webinar, an hour-long webinar on different sort of a la carte basis rather than a full conference. We also created a tremendous amount of new programming. So these would be programs that would be specifically about distance teaching and learning. And so we created a new series of webinars called the Distance Teaching and Learning Series, where we offered programming to really help teachers pivot to create, transition their academic program to the online realm. All of our e-seminars in that series were free to members and at a cost to non-members, and all of our recordings are posted on our YouTube channel. And so that's true for all of our programming, not just in this particular series, but all of the webinars we organize as an association. We're posting all of our recordings on our YouTube channel for use by both members and non-members. And we've seen a huge increase. So we used to offer about 1 or 2 webinars. This is an existing service we had in our association, 1 or 2 webinars a month. And in the past 3 weeks, we've offered 18. So the volume is increased tremendously, and the participation has increased tremendously. So we go from having maybe 40 people on a typical webinar or 50 people to now, 200 or 300 people, depending on the topic. In addition, we had to look carefully at our vendors and our funding model and work with those groups to look for alternative revenue sources. And we've worked with also developing roundtables for peer-to-peer communication among our members. And these have been hugely valuable. So these are sessions that we host, but really are largely an opportunity for our members to get together and talk about issues that are affecting them and their leadership of their schools. And finally, I'll just mention that we have hired a communications consultant to be our point person at the association. The slide you're seeing right now is our public COVID-19 resource page on our website, but we've also developed both a listserv and a private, behind a privacy section of our website, members only COVID-19 resources page, which has been a tremendous resource to our members. And I think they come to look at that as a huge value and a sort of a first place to look for up to the moment guidelines from the state and recommendations on how to run their organization. So I think I'm out of time. I want to thank you, Lowell, so much. I could keep going, but others are behind me. So thank you.
No, I appreciate it. You have a great organization of resources that I think, first of all, speak to the schools. I think there's also a lot on here I know as a parent that I can't wait to go back and click through as well. And so what you're doing, both for your members, but also for the community, is a great impact. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Best of luck to everybody.
Now we'll move from New York to Illinois. I'd like to invite Debbie LeCamp, CAE, to join us. She's the Executive Director of the Illinois State Veterinary Medical Association. Debbie? Debbie, you on? If not, we will keep moving. So I'll give a moment in case she is muted. Okay, we will see if Debbie comes back in a moment. Give me one moment. Mark, are you there?
Yes, sir, sure am.
All right, so we will shift. There we go. And we'll talk to Mark Neeb. Mark Neeb, MBA, CPA, is the CEO of ACA International. Mark?
Thanks, Lowell. Good day, everybody. Thanks for inviting me to talk a little bit about what ACA's pivot has been in the past few weeks. We are in the financial services industry, and we represent credit collections companies, not just in the United States, but around the world. We're the world's largest trade in that space. We have about 2,500 members, comprising about 250,000 people in 40 countries around the world. So we're in a unique situation and a unique position for our members to help consumers cope with the crisis and the financial calamity that might be coming along with it. And so we've been working with our members very diligently to help them have the tools to make sure that we're working with consumers in the right way. So what's our goal with our members? Well, we want them to continue to be relevant. We want to share ideas with them that'll help them continue to operate. I mean, literally in some states we're not even able to operate. Help them remain a part of the community of our industry, and finally kind of help them cope with and overcome the fears that they're dealing with right now. So we have a mantra at ACA that our only job is to help members succeed. So with that, we had some conversations internally with our senior staff and got to talking about what could we do to help our members and to pivot to something as quickly as possible. Well, that evening I was on the treadmill watching the news like I normally am, and I happened to catch one of the first presidential healthcare task force meetings and press conferences, and I got to thinking, you know, that's not a bad idea. If we do that for consumers around the country from the POTUS, why wouldn't we do that as debt collectors for our members? And so got together and had another conversation with our senior staff, and I said, look, I think it'd be really cool if we had a very short call every day that told our members what happened over the past 24 hours that is pertinent to their business, you know, kind of like a football huddle. And we looked at each other and decided, oh, that's a good name, the Daily Huddle. So we've pulled this thing off on a daily basis, and we're a very heavily regulated organization, both at the state and the federal level. Right now, states are kind of doing their own thing with regard to our industry. In some states, we're considered essential. In some, we are considered non-essential. That creates a challenge across all the states. And then combine that with, on the federal level, the Families First, the CARES Act, PPP, SBA loans, which seem to be a moving target right now. And it just told us we had this immense opportunity to get in front of our members. And so that's what we've been doing now every day for the past 2.5 weeks. Now, some of the challenges we've had, of course, are we're an 80-year-old trade association, and 80-year-old not-for-profits aren't always as nimble as you might like them to be. We've got 50 staff, and generally speaking, our work is very well planned out. So for us to kind of morph into a daily newscast was really a challenge for us. Yeah. So we created a team of our education professionals, compliance, legal staff, and communications, and scheduled one and put out a really easy one-time only registration feature for our members, and waited for the first daily huddle 2 days hence. And when we had that first call, we had about 450 offices dial into it. Wow. Since then, we've been averaging about 650 offices every day. What started out as a 30-minute huddle call has kind of transitioned into 45 minutes to 60 minutes. People don't want to hang up. They want as much information as we can get them. And so sometimes this huddle now goes on for about 75 minutes, and we'll keep 550 people to the end. So I think that, you know, that's the pivot. That we've done a lot of webinars. We do a lot of educational material and seminars and stuff for our members, but this is the one respite, the one place they can go to on a daily basis. It's free to members. We've had a bunch of affiliate members jump in and help sponsor the event. So from a financial perspective, we're having it underwritten. And I guess the last thing I would say is, going forward, we've already decided that we've branded the Daily Huddle so well that I think we'll be doing a weekly huddle down the road when things settle down a little bit, as we've kind of sucked the air out of the other trade associations in our space, because we're the go-to organization right now for everybody in our industry. So it didn't start out like that. It more or less started out like Bill Gates creating a computer company in the garage, but it's turned into something pretty interesting. Yeah, so well, that's our story, and I want to thank you for having me.
No, it's a great story, and it's a great example. I love the brand of it, and I love the impact that you're clearly making. You know, when you run an event, and at the end of the event, even a digital one, they don't want to leave, you're doing something right. So thanks so much, Mark. Really appreciate it.
Take care.
All right, we will go back to Illinois. Debbie LeCamp, the Executive Director of the Illinois State Veterinary Medical Association. Debbie, you there? Saw you a moment ago. Wait, we can't hear you.
Still mute. Now can you hear me?
Now we can
Hey,
hear you.
thanks, Lowell. It's an opportunity to speak today. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I'm learning so much from our colleagues across the country. The Illinois State Veterinary Medical Association is a statewide association of veterinarians and veterinary technicians. We have a very small staff, and our first pivot in this became around the essential services designation. In Illinois, we had about 36 hours that we actually thought the city of Chicago was going to do a shelter in place before the state of Illinois. And interestingly enough, we do not, we only do state advocacy. And so we had to pivot very quickly and find a advocate for the city of Chicago to make sure that the mayor understood the importance of veterinary services in a situation like COVID-19. So that was our first pivot, but we also found that building partnerships is very key. As you look at this, we have had the ability to build partnerships and advocate using partnerships that we already have built with state agencies. We're in daily contact with our Department of Public Health, our Department of Agriculture, our emergency management teams, certainly other state and city officials. That has put our association in the map of keeping everyone on the same page, so that state agencies and our veterinarians are all on the same page about public health issues. Our veterinarians are out there taking care of emergency situations for pets, but what many people don't realize is veterinarians are also key to the food service chain. We actually inspect all the food that goes through different plants. And so that is important that we have our livestock and our food chain secure. Our veterinarians also have become a huge partner. As many of you know, as execs, sometimes we look at opportunities where we want our members to engage, and our members have taken this engagement to a brand new level. We actually have a veterinarian who ran a survey for us and actually ran the entire project for us with our communications capabilities. And we had over 200 veterinarians in the state of Illinois volunteer to go into the human medical field as assistants and volunteers. And that has now been connected with the emergency management system so that we are ready if we're called upon. They have medical skills that can easily transfer to the human world. In addition to that, our association's run a personal protective equipment survey. Obviously, we have gloves, sanitizers, medications, ventilators, other things that can be transferred into the human health effort. And our members have answered that call. They have transferred a lot of ideas and a lot of information and a lot of product to the human health industry. And we'll continue to do that as a supportive measure. So I'm so proud of them. But in addition to that, we have a number of veterinarians who've created a public health service for our own industry. We have about 4 veterinarians that have masters in public health degrees, and they are now taking surveys and questions from our membership and helping them write medical protocols and safety protocols for not only clients and but medical professionals in the veterinary industry, which is keeping everyone safe. In addition to that, our members have asked, and we're responding starting this week with some town halls. Our town halls will bring in some emergency management personnel, some public health personnel, and we want to make sure that we have that touch point with them, just as many of you do with your members. We know that we have a high rate of mental health distress issues, and this situation certainly has compounded some of those in our profession. Unfortunately, we also lost a very, very well-known veterinarian in the state of Illinois to COVID-19, and so that has raised some additional stress levels in our membership. And we're addressing that by having these town halls, by answering individual questions, keeping our communications open. In addition, we're doing regular emails like many of you are doing. And those emails, the 2 that we've actually had incredible response to are ones about mental health, positivity, resources for your families, resources for your day-to-day management of the situation. You know, it's amazing. And interestingly enough, we had members that supplied all this information to us. We had 3 or 4 we asked, and they responded with just lists of opportunities, and we're going to continue that as well. So we wanted to share that positive. And then, of course, like all of you, our members are down about 35 to 50% in their business issues. And so anything that has an opportunity to be in business management, business loan, we want to communicate and share that as we go through. With all of those wonderful things, I'll share one last pivot that we had to do. Typically, April is Healthy Pet Month in Illinois. So we talk about the importance of taking your pets to the veterinarian and providing regular routine care for your pets. Interestingly enough, we've had to pivot very hard on that. And we've actually gone to more of a COVID-19 pet care situation. And while we didn't provide it under Healthy Pet Week, there's a number of resources for our veterinarians to use in their social media to address those issues with their members. And we've also provided some kind of funny things. We want to stay as positive as possible, keep people on that positive level and on that interaction level. So that's what we've been doing in Illinois. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present, and thank you so much for providing this for all of us to learn from each other.
No, thank you so much, Debbie. It's great to hear the balance you have. You know, so sorry for the loss of the leader in your space. This is definitely touching each of us personally and professionally, and the balance of the resources, the care, and as well as the positive where we can find it in the humor. It's a great narrative of the balance of all of it. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
I'd like to have us go from Illinois over to Virginia, where I'd like to invite Sarah Marshall to join us. She is the Executive Director of the Virginia College of Emergency Physicians. Sarah.
Hello, everyone. So about a month ago, I was at the Maryland chapter of our national organizations conference, and our national president was there, and he said, if you are called to action, act. And the next day I went into self-quarantine, where I've been in my house for the last month. And immediately we were thinking to ourselves, like, what can we do during this pandemic? What we started to do first was to focus our resources on improving the information, both in quality and clarifying and filling the gaps in the information that was getting to our members' patients. There's not much that I can do clinically to help, but I could help with the information that was getting out. In addition, we've been monitoring the news and other channels, including a nationwide discussion thread with the nation's emergency physicians to understand the emerging issues and connect them with resources via email and other channels. As some of other people have mentioned, the click rate and open rates on those messages were fairly low. After the first couple of weeks, we realized that the issue was not information, but it was resources. So as we began a national conversation on the lack of personal protective equipment, or PPE, we kept thinking about what we could do as an organization to address this. One of my counterparts in Texas had created a PPE drive, as other organizations have done. And while that was great and comprehensive, they've already used that supply. That supply is limited. So we wanted to figure out a way that we could produce. Last Tuesday afternoon, my board president texted me and said, I've created a prototype of an intubation box, a hood that fits over your head and shoulders while a physician is intubating you to hook you up to a respirator. This is one of the most high-risk procedures in COVID patient care because the virus can aerosolize and infect and put the physicians and other medical professionals at risk. So he asked if this was something that we could help with. He had some contractor friends that were willing to help make the boxes. And so Tuesday afternoon, we decided to put up a website or put up a page on our website so that we could sell these boxes to emergency physicians. Wednesday, we launched the website in the morning. The orders started coming in. We had an article in a local news outlet about our project. A healthcare company reached out and asked if they could partner with us. And we realized that we could receive donations to fund one box for every emergency department in Virginia. So we opened a donation portal and I started reaching out to potential partners. And we ordered more materials so that we could create that quantity of boxes. So that was Wednesday. Thursday, our first boxes were done. My board president and I loaded them into our cars and drove them around Virginia to deliver them to hospitals. The media attention started driving more people to our website, not just to donate and to order boxes, but other projects around the country, which we knew existed, that wanted to collaborate with us and connect with us about our project too. So by the time I got home from making deliveries, I texted the group to ask if we could pivot to a flat pack design so that we could ship these not just around Virginia, but to other states as well. And if we could reach out to a local international paper company based in our city to see if they could provide the boxes to put the kits in. And I asked for several $1,000s worth of funding from several organizations. By Friday, I got a contact from a commercial production facility in Virginia that was interested in creating these at a larger scale, because we were starting to realize from the requests that we were getting that this was not just Virginia or the Southeast US, but that this virus was going to spread to the Southern Hemisphere, and we needed to be able to meet demand. So we found a flat pack design from Toronto, and we're working on our phase 2 of production now of puzzle pieces that can be fit together and secured with wire ties. We will be packing and shipping them later this week and then moving to commercial production for phase 3. We also realized that while there were a lot of intubation projects around the Americas, there was nobody bringing them together. So what we're also working on now is creating a network of these projects so that we can ensure distribution across the US and to other continents as well. We also got word on Friday that we had received enough funding to provide at least one box to every emergency department in Virginia, plus some. So our mission was achieved within 3 days. And now we're working on how to scale this globally. It's a rapidly evolving project, so I will say that, you know, our resources that you're going to get are probably going to look a little bit different over the next week or so as we kind of get more feedback and figure out how to scale this and how we really want to contribute as an organization. It may be that production, as much as we want to be you know, on the front lines of producing this, we can do more just by coordinating efforts of other people. So in addition, we're getting into conversations about blockchain and even going higher up to see how do we really solve the supply crisis in the medical industry, not just, you know, how do we fix supply right now for this pandemic. Just checking to see if, so the last thing is that we've also had people reach out about face shields. So this started with me thinking I would love us to be able to provide PPE, but I don't have any connections to people that provide filtering fabric material. So,
Sure.
You know, what can we do? So we're literally thinking sort of outside the box or inside the box, as the pun might be, to think about how can we use plastics, which are far more readily available, to create easily cleanable and safe solutions for protective equipment. So in addition to intubation boxes, we're now talking to a lot of people around Virginia and elsewhere that are able to create face shields to go over the faces in addition to masks. And that might be the next phase of this project as well.
Sarah, that is an amazing pivot and amazing results as well for your field and for all of us. I mean, you know, those that are caring for us are safer and healthy. They're going to be able to care for us. And so thank you for such an impactful and meaningful story and for doing so from your home the next day as you did so.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lowell, for putting this together.
Absolutely. The link, if you want to see more about the intubation boxes, and the link, I'm putting all of them, of course, in the chat box, so you can follow along, everyone who's with us, as well as they'll all be afterwards. This is all being recorded, and so in the coming days, you'll get a recording of this webinar, as well as a full page with all the links, so you can share them and look at them on your own as well. Thanks, Sarah. from Virginia, let's move to Tennessee. I'd like to invite Micah Cost, PharmD MS, who's a pharmacist by training and currently serves as the executive director of the Tennessee Pharmacists Association, to join us. Micah, you there?
I'm here. There we go.
There we go.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity and excited to share a little bit about what we've done in Tennessee. All of this started obviously with a discussion with our staff and the discussion that we were going to move remote. And it was a very intentional discussion about how we were going to provide value to our members during a difficult time, realizing that pharmacists and pharmacy professionals are on the front lines and their responsibilities won't change, and patients still need medications and patients still need that pharmacist provided care. That was our first discussion as a staff. And we all made the decision that we were going to move remote and we were going to transition to an internal communication system. And that was the first procedural change internally to make this work. We moved to Microsoft Teams, and when we moved to Teams, it allowed all of our pharmacists to be able to make changes and get information in a quicker fashion, because we as a staff internally were scouring the internet, we were evaluating things, putting resources together. And on this specific page, we decided that pharmacists needed a specific page, and our job was not to necessarily create all the national resources, but our job was to convene the resources and put them in a central location. And so by building this webinar or this resource page out, we really provided our members a central repository of information that was valid, credible information that pharmacists could go to and get that information about. And then we started thinking about what our role was as an association. And our role is really to advance, protect, and promote patient access to high quality pharmacist provided care in Tennessee. And so with that mission, our job is to advocate for rule changes, law changes, things that need to be laxed so that pharmacists can continue to do their jobs and to take care of patients, realizing that more patients are going to come in and come into our community pharmacies, but we also need to have flexibility in our pharmacists that are providing care in hospitals. And so we developed a set of policy recommendations that we pulled together and posted on our webpage and shared those with the governor's office so that we could get some of the important executive orders changed so that pharmacists could continue to have flexibility in how they counsel patients, how they talk to patients, and then also listen to our members and found out what they needed in terms of protecting their staff. And so we built those recommendations and posted them on our website. And so started out with the website as the central repository of information. And it really allowed us to create some opportunities for our pharmacists to advocate for those changes that are needed in order for patients to continue to get medications. We tried to figure out how pharmacists could play a greater role in providing care to patients, maybe some rules that could be allowed through telehealth and telemedicine to allow pharmacists to interact with patients in unique ways. And so all of those were built into that central policy recommendation. And that policy recommendation document was something that we shared with the governor's office, our Medicaid department, and our fellow lawmakers as they were building out the CARES Act and some of the other federal policies. And also realizing that state pharmacy associations have that central connection to the state, and a lot of the responses that were happening around COVID were state-based, really working with our national associations to get their policy recommendations and then carry them forward to the governor. And so we used this resource, I think, as a central repository, and then we used a couple of weekly webinars that we held. As most folks have alluded to, those were very highly attended webinars. And we use those webinars to really highlight some of the resources that we have on the website to drive some of the traffic to our website, and realizing that everybody was getting hit a lot of different areas of emails on who's doing what on COVID. We didn't want to be the person that sends out, or the organization that sends out emails every single day, because they were getting hit with a lot of different information. So we use our website and we update it continuously, and if there's something specific, we'll bring attention to it, but we'll drive everybody back to the website. So we really aligned it by each category that we felt like pharmacists needed to know based on their practice. And so the website's really been the central factor, and then just listening and adjusting to members' policy concerns is really how we've tried to position that. So with that, I think my 4 minutes is up, but I really do appreciate the opportunity.
That was not my timer. That was not my timer alarm going.
No, that's my timer. I wanted to give my folks on the behind me an opportunity. So I do appreciate the opportunity. I'm happy to answer questions. We've shared this website out, and we've had other state pharmacy associations essentially copy and paste it and build it out. So this resource page has really been something that we shared with a lot of different associations. And with that, Lowell, thank you so much for allowing me to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Micah. And as with the rest of our speakers, if you have any questions for Micah, you can put them in the questions box. We appreciate you joining us. From Tennessee, we're going to move down south and head over to Texas. Over there we go. I'd like to invite Tiffany McGee to join us, CAE. Tiffany is the president of the National Association of Trial Lawyer Executives. She's the chair-elect of the Texas Society of Association Executives, as well as the CEO of the Texas Trial Lawyers Association. I hope I got those all right, Tiffany.
You did, Lowell. Thank you. And thank you for having me here today. TTLA has over 2,500 members across a huge state. We have around 200 members on our board, which is nuts. We have 25 members on our executive committee. And our budget is incredibly dues dependent and is based on an anniversary date. And so let this sink in. 75% of our income comes from membership dues at some service or service level or amount. And we are in a constant state of renewal. When the crisis began, we knew we had to dial into what would help our members survive if their traditional way of working slowed down or halted in order for them to renew their membership. So a little background, our membership is made up of small firms and solo practitioners who are plaintiff attorneys in Texas. They practice in all different counties of the state. Considering the nature of those practices, meaning they meet with clients in their offices, they do in-person deposition in law offices, and they appear in court. Moving their offices to operate virtually would be a huge challenge for them. The profession is also stressful mentally, emotionally, and professionally. And our main concern was giving members a way to connect in person, to hear each other's voices, and be heard when they're in distress. The first thing we did was hold a free town hall meeting where several leaders and I talked about how to quickly move your law firm to a virtual office. We had some tech-savvy leaders that listed several apps for them to consider using the quick transition they would have to make. And to compound their stress, as county judges began issuing stay-at-home orders, many counties' orders were unclear as to how law firms should operate, creating inconsistencies and confusion for our members. So we created the COVID-19 resource page on our website, which is the link that I shared with Lowell. It serves as a repository of orders from across the state, from the Supreme Court of Texas, and it's grown to include a wealth of other information, including the various free webinars we have conducted for them. One on a comprehensive overview of the various orders issued across the state. A detailed how-to for using Zoom for depositions and hearings. And even last week, information on the SBA loan program. I've worked for TTLA for 27 years, and my predecessor passed away suddenly in 2013. And they made me CEO, in part, I think, to help steady the ship. They know from past performance that I have the ability to do that. And so we recorded a video message from me to let them know we are strong. We're looking around the corner to anticipate what they need. We are here for them always. Historically and culturally, the messenger on this was just as important as the message. In the first week, we assembled a small group of leaders to serve on the COVID-19 crisis task force. I led them through a SWOT analysis and a detailed list of assumptions. This helped us develop timely webinar content and forecast financially. With 75% of our income coming from dues, we must be essential to our members. And I need a group of steady leaders who have a good sense of what our solos need. This group has met twice since we started working remotely on March 13th. Leaders and members are not the same. They are different simply because they raised their hands to volunteer. And if there's one piece of advice that I could leave you guys with, it is to make sure that your leaders can focus on your members, on your rank and file members and what they need. And if you can't do that formally, do it informally with a brain trust working group if you can. I have to give a shout out to my staff. Several of them are on this call today. And thank you for letting me share our story.
No, thank you for sharing it. I've provided in the chat box both the link to this page as well as the link to the YouTube video so everyone can see it. Really appreciate it all, Tiffany. Thank you. From Texas, we're going to move to the West Coast and hear from California. I'd like to invite Laura Thomas to join us. Laura is the Director of Meetings and Member Services for the California Association of Health Facilities. Laura?
Good morning, and thank you for having me. My association represents long-term care facilities, nursing homes. So consequently, we've been on the front lines of this whole thing right from the get-go. If I were to launch into what we're doing for COVID, we would seriously be here all day. So I'm going to narrow it down a little bit and tell you a little bit more of a focus story on how we quickly pivoted from an in-person conference to a virtual one in a super small amount of time. Our spring legislative conference was supposed to be in Sacramento, the capital, beginning on March 15th. On Monday, March 9th, the large gathering guidance came out from the governor, and we were forced to quickly go to Plan B. We'd kind of been talking about it for a few days, but then it became increasingly clear that although we felt we had some really vital information to share with our members, the chances of us being able to move forward were looking increasingly slim. So I use my own AV company for our meetings as opposed to hotel or in-house AV. So I had already reached out to them and asked them a little bit about live streaming. This is not my wheelhouse. I throw huge conferences. I knew that, you know, live streaming to me might as well have been magic. I had no idea. They had a company that they'd been working with, and at that point, I just had to put myself in the hands of people who knew what they were doing and then stay out of their way. And simultaneously, our staff, which is large for a state association, we have a staff of 42. Everyone swung into action and seriously working more cohesively than I think maybe we ever have. I can't say enough about how much everybody went above and beyond for making this all happen. They all played their part and they played it well. For a multitude of reasons, we decided to live stream just our opening and our closing sessions and then offer everything else as on-demand webinars. We have an education foundation, so they already had the platform for on-demand learning, so that all sort of fell into place rather easily. We have a graphic designer who quickly changed our website to reflect these decisions, and I think that Lowell is showing you that now. We had a variety of information on there as to what to do, how to do it. We recorded the rest of the webinars over the next 2 weeks, and then they were all offered on demand by March 30th. One of the things that I think worked in our favor was the I'm trying to remember what we call it. It's the what you get section of this web page, and we only lost about half of our paid registrants, which we called that a win. Everyone else found enough value from what we had to stay with it. So we haven't sent out, our initial response was really good. We're going to do a survey, but we really felt that this was a win. We only had to refund half the money. As an aside, our communication to our members is constant. It's literally all day, every day. Unlike some of the others that have spoken today, our dues right now is not an issue, only because our members have never needed us more than they do right now. We take that responsibility very seriously, of course, but we also need to look forward, and we're anticipating that we're probably going to have to do the same thing with our summer conference in July. We're already, myself and my staff, we're trying to educate ourselves on pretty much everything we can find on taking a conference virtual and making it a little more interesting, how to keep our sponsors, which are the lifeblood of our conferences. And so I hope this is helpful to someone. If anyone has questions about the specifics of this, I'm happy to answer them, and especially with who I use to help me through this. And thanks again for having me.
No, thank you so much for sharing the story and the narrative. As you said, for all of us joining virtually, you'll see on the resources, the first tab there is coronavirus, which you can go and also explore and see the great work that CAHF is doing in other areas in response to this as well. Appreciate you sharing this tale of going virtual in a flip of a moment. Thanks so much, Laura.
Thank you.
And for our last presenter today, but certainly not least, we'd like to go to Washington State, where Jackie Barry, CAE, Executive Director of the Physical Therapy Association of Washington, will be joining us.
Hi, everyone. You're going to hear me, but not see me. So nice to be here today. So we're the Association for Physical Therapy Professionals and Students in Washington State, and we're a chapter of the American Physical Therapy Association. APTA provides significant support to chapters, and we're functioning hand in hand with them in this crisis. So for us, it was primarily a pivot to a completely different topic, with the questions and concerns coming in so fast and furious that they took over at least 1/3 of our 3 FTE bandwidth. So besides answering the individual queries, we've tried to cut through it all and provide relevant and accurate links on our 2 basic web pages, the COVID-19 web page you can see here, and then there's a second one specific to telehealth, which I'll talk about a little bit more later. We've also been trying to think about where the world and the profession will be in like 3 months, 6 months, and a year. I mean, things have changed a lot for our folks, as well as the rest of you. And we're trying to think about what we'll need to do to exist as providers and as an organization. It feels a little bit like being in one of those futuristic movies rather than just watching it. So initial questions from our members related to whether physical therapy care should be provided at all, and where was the line when making that decision. So APTA issued a statement on March 17th urging members to reschedule non-urgent care, but to use their critical judgment about whether to provide care. We issued a similar message, and we borrowed language from our colleagues in California regarding strategies to provide care should your clinical judgment indicate in-person care should occur. So we feel strongly that some care is necessary or a patient's condition will get worse. On the other side, the possibility that patients will become infected with a deadly virus when they come to see you is now a stark reality, unfortunately. So those things need to be weighed. So these statements were not enough for some and contradictory to others. We were accused of a mind-boggling lack of leadership, and some members were astonished that we would provide contradictory messages. So I had to take that along with it. On March 23rd, when our governor issued his first stay-at-home order, the guidance explicitly stated that physical therapists and physical therapist assistants were considered to be part of the essential workforce, which, of course, we were happy about. But our members needed guidance about what the spirit of this stay-at-home order meant, particularly in terms of clinical operations. So then, after that piece, the state government, and in the minds of our members, the economic issues came next, closely followed by patients who didn't want to leave their homes despite needing post-surgical or other treatment to keep functioning. So as a result, we're now maneuvering the quagmire of telehealth, and that continues to be a major emphasis for us. Standards of care, in case you're wondering, don't change when a provider provides care via telehealth. Some care can and some care cannot be provided virtually. But it is something. It is a Wild West territory for many providers, though. It hasn't been something that people have needed quite like they've needed it now. Insurance companies are also scrambling to figure this out too, since it's kind of at the forefront of people being able to actually get care or not. And there are dozens of insurance plans in each state, and each one has its own payment policy. So we're trying to sift through all of that and trying to provide accurate information. So this is an area where my newspaper reporting background has come in handy. Before I post something on our website, I insist on seeing something in writing from the insurance company, and they're scrambling to provide that sort of information. So, and sometimes what's in writing excludes crucial detail. For instance, on March 30th, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services announced that they would pay for physical therapy provided via telehealth. APTA immediately urged members to wait for their analysis of these new rules, which would be coming the next day. One of our board members told me to let members know they could now bill Medicare for telehealth, and if it ended up not being true, that we could, and this is what this person said, we can deal with the fallout later. So I refused to issue that message to members, and as it turned out, while CMS did say telehealth could be provided for physical therapy, they did not also issue the authority for PTAs and PTs to provide that care. So kind of a bureaucratic snafu, but anyway, APTA is working on that, and we hope that that situation will change soon. So reactions from our community, we get the usual thank yous. They're a very appreciative bunch, but we're getting them in greater volume, and sometimes people breathe a sigh of relief. Like, for instance, one provider from a large health system in Seattle, after reading the guidance from CMS about providing PT via telehealth and thinking that that guidance said that he could now do that, or that they could in that health system now do that, he called, but he was hearing conflicting opinions from his coworkers. He called me and asked for guidance. So I directed him to APTA's statement, which is very concise, informative, and factual. And I think I detected an extra measure of relief in his voice when he thanked me. So that was helpful. So basically, in a nutshell, we're monitoring state and national activity, awaiting our members' calls and letters, and trying to use our crystal ball to see what's coming in the next few months and possibly years, and to help guide our members down the path. That's it for me.
Appreciate both the action being taken in real time as well as the forecasting, which is something that we all try to do, and in a moment such as this, of course, is easier said than done. I'm just putting, 1 second. There we go. Here's the page on telehealth as well for everyone. I know that we have gone a few moments over, but all the stories that we heard today, the narratives, I think, reinforce for all of us the importance of our organizations. You know, it gives these kinds of actions, these kinds of pivots are exactly what allows us in times of non-crisis to say we are there through thick and thin to support our members, their profession, their industry, and society at large. Because in moments of crisis, we are the rallying points and the centers for those industries and for those professions. We want to thank you for joining us today, or if you're watching this after, for taking the time. Hopefully you learned something from each of the stories, and I'll turn it back to Mark to share about the recording and what will happen next.
Thank you, Lowell, and to all of our panelists for sharing their examples and experiences today. For those of you on the webinar, you will receive a follow-up by the end of today with a link to the recording as well as your CAE hours certificate. For those unable to join us on a live webinar, the Association Societies Alliance will be sharing a link to each of your societies of association executives for them to share out. That will include the recorded webinar as well as the listing of all example websites shared today. Thank you again, and please stay safe out there. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Bye.